another reel comes up, reel 2. And it's a slightly different angle of Steve sitting on the train, not doing anything. We watched another 10 minutes of this. And then another reel comes up, and same thing. John sitting on the train, slightly different angle. Steve sitting on the train. And I hadn't seen John in many months, and I sort of glanced over at him, and he was sitting there smoking cigarettes, watching the screen. And I thought, what's going on here? What is this? So another reel came on, reel 5, reel 6, reel 7. We watched 10,000 feet of Steve Martin sitting on the train, not doing anything. Now, John considered the shooting process an extension of the writing process. So he may have been shooting stuff and trying to think of things for him to do. I don't know what's going on in his mind. As it turns out, that day's footage became extremely important in the recutting of the end of the film. We had a lot of difficulty finding the final form of planes, trains, and automobiles. The first cut, now they shot for 85 days. That's a lot of days of shooting. We would have, in one day, we would have 3 hours of dailies for a particular scene. And I would come out of dailies and I'd turn to the crew and I'd say, we just watched more film for one scene than can be in the entire movie. And we had 85 days of shooting like this. So the first cut, of course, we were under great time pressure. We had to get the picture out for Thanksgiving, and we were shooting in May and June, April, May, and June. I started promoting my assistants to editor, so I had a second editor and then a third editor, and I brought somebody else in. There were 4 of us cutting. We finally got the picture together 1 week after the shooting finished on June 30th. And we got our first cut 1 week later. The cut ran 3 hours and 45 minutes. Now, at that point, John took off for 2 weeks. He just left town.
And he just left you with this?
Yeah, the studio was going nuts. And, and anyway, finally, I don't remember what happened in this 2 weeks, but anyway, he came back. We sat down at the camp. We started going through the cut. And he would say, out, get rid of it, lose this, lose that, take this out, dump that. And on the first pass, we took out 1 hour and 15 minutes. So we're down to 2.5 hours. So I turned to him and I said, you just took out 28 days of shooting. And he just shrugged his shoulders. But anyway, we continued cutting, and this was now, maybe the last week of July. By the end of August, we had gotten the picture down to 2 hours. We had our first preview. And I thought this was really a funny movie. And we had this preview on a lot of Paramount. And about half an hour into the movie, people started walking out. And I was shocked. And frankly, I've never recovered. I've never gone into a preview feeling confident ever since. And people kept walking out. We were just deeply dismayed. Now, the thing is, when you start with a very long cut of a film, and you cut it down, and you cut it down, and you cut, you think you've arrived at the final form, you're not there yet, because you've started so long. The final cut of the film is around 90 minutes. So we still had a lot of cutting to do when we had gotten to 2 hours. Now, we were around Labor Day at this point, so we started having previews twice a week. We had 9 previews in the month of September. And it took us 4 previews before we figured out what the problem was, why people were turning on the movie the way they had. And it was a very simple character thing. In a character comedy or a character drama, for that matter, it's very important that the audience like the characters. It's not enough that they like the actor, they have to like the character as well. And there could be a single line that's spoken by by the character that will turn the ratings off. You get rid of that one line, and you'll completely turn around. And anyway, it took us about 4 screenings to figure that out. And then we were dealing with other issues and we kept cutting it down. We screened it so many times at Paramount that we had cards that read, "I like the other ending better." They kept recruiting the same people. It came, at that time, so let me see, so that was the end of September. We had October to finish the sound, and then it opened, I think, November 9th or something, the second week in November. So it was a tremendously pressured, rushed process. But I guess, it's funny when I like to say that when pictures are released, it's the birth of the picture, and they have these long lives. And when the film first opened, although we had great hopes for it, we were knocked out of first place at the box office by 3 Men and a Baby, which was very disappointing to us. But it's now 25 years later, and to have people come out to the theater and see it, it's very gratifying.
How many people here watch this every single year for Thanksgiving? Yeah.
This was a hope that John had expressed. When he came up with the idea, he said, "I hope this becomes like a classic that people watch year after year." And that was what he hoped, but it didn't happen right away.
Well, you've done a lot of work. How have you seen your career and just editing change? Because as our basic premise is that we are archivists, and one of the things that we do look at is people like you who've had very extensive careers and extensive. And you've worked in a lot of our favorite films that we are working to try and preserve and restore. And you have had very recent work with Last Mission Possible. And how have you seen your job as an editor, sort of move forward through the years?
I don't know. It's sort of like I feel like an earthworm. I just keep going forward. I don't look back all that much. They put stuff in front of me and I work on it. And it's very absorbing work. It's very satisfying. It's you always hear people talking about be here now, be in the now. And when you're working, when I'm working on films, I have no sense of time passing. I'm not thinking about the past. I'm not thinking about the future. I'm dealing only with what's right in front of me. So it's very, for me, it's been very, for the most part, I didn't say universally, but it's been mostly stress-free, where you just get into a flow of the work. And the new tools don't change things all that much. They've allowed us great freedom to do things that we could never dream of doing easily with film. I mean, there's some great montages and things that were done with just film, with many layers of images and so forth that the filmmakers could only imagine until they've gotten the results from the visual effects houses, or they call it optical houses at the time. But the Avid gives you an enormous amount of freedom, and when people ask about what machine I work on, I just say, writing is not about the pen. The tool you use is not the point. It's what you do with it that matters. I think it's great. For me, work is play, and to get paid for it is fantastic. I tell people I would do the work for nothing and get paid for coming in.
Well, thank you so very much
You're welcome.